Pittsburgh Steelers have a pretty long list of free agents this offseason. Pro Football Focus says that the one that the Pittsburgh Steelers must hold on to is defensive tackle Armon Watts. They cannot let Armon Watts walk. That is their must re-sign this offseason. Me and you were talking before the show. Nick, our producer, was talking with us before the show. None of us agreed that Armon Watts should be the guy that they must re-sign, although would be a good re-signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think you could get him cheap, and I think he played a good role for them this year, added a veteran presence, was a nice guy. Fan of Armon Watts. You look at the list of Pittsburgh Steelers potential free agents. I know Armon Watts is not top on that list. Who is top on that list for you when it comes to this free agency cycle?
Yeah, Armon Watts might not even be like top 3 if we're being real. And that's like you said, that's no disrespect to Armon Watts, but there are better players on this list, and there are better players at his position. I think Montravius Adams is a much bigger priority. I'm sorry if I'm stealing 100%. Your guy, but he was the first name I looked at. Because this is also a guy who is not going to be expensive either. That's the other thing is the Steelers do not have big name free agents up for re-signing this year. I mean, unless you kind of say Quan Alexander, the biggest one is
that's a 1 year deal type of guy. No long term. Oh, this is a guy,
right?
On that list. I agree with you.
Right, and Mason Rudolph would be the only other one, and that's because he's a quarterback. And even that, I'm not necessarily looking at that as a huge priority. I say Montravius Adams just because the age of Cameron Hayward, kind of I wouldn't call them cryptic comments after the season ended, but they were certainly uncertain just about what his future with the franchise is, what his future in professional football is. So I feel like you really need to shore up the defensive line, the interior of the defensive line. Love what they have in Keanu Benton, but you need to have at least one more interior lineman. And in my opinion, I think it should be Montravius Adams. I know he's had some injury concerns, especially last year, but I think he's a good player. I think you can get him for cheap, and I think he is better than Armon Watts. So I would, if we're thinking about it that way, I would much rather have Montravius Adams locked up over Armon Watts.
Yeah, I agree. Montravius Adams is a starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Keanu Benton, say Cam does, I expect Cam said he's not retiring. I expect him to be back. They got to work out the contract situation, but they'll figure that out on their own. The way I look at it is, if Cam can't play every down because he's 34, 35 years old, Keanu Benton, I want to play defensive tackle more than I want him to play nose tackle. I want him to be the dude who replaces Cam in a year. That's where I want him to sit. Montravius Adams is a great nose tackle. Armon Watts is not a nose tackle, so it doesn't even work out there. And again, I like Armon Watts. Montravius Adams, if he doesn't get hurt last year, who knows if he loses his starting job to Keanu Benton. He was that guy. He replaced Tyson Alualu. Ever since he showed up in Pittsburgh, he's produced at a very high level. I thought he looked really good at the beginning of last season. I'm all about Montravius Adams. I don't think he wants to go anywhere else. You talk to a guy like that, and he understands that it's a business, but at the same time, he made a career for himself here, and I think that means something. And I think that if the Steelers want him back, he'll stay. He'll come back. He'll be that guy. I'd much rather sign him. And just like you said, cheap wise, dude, go sign them both. But I'm not saying Armon Watts is the guy I'm signing first, unless he's just much easier to sign and just saying, hey, look at, you want to do. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever you want to toss at me. Sounds good to me. Which I expect Montravius Adams to also be in that same boat. I think there's a name on here that probably slips under the radar. And obviously Mason Rudolph is the biggest one. That is, quarterback. Mike Tomlin said that's who we want back, blah, blah, blah. Which, if you're gonna say that's the guy you must re-sign, it'd be Mason Rudolph. Miles Killebrew is sitting on this list. And I get it. Special teams is always the forgotten sibling, the middle child, the whatever you want to call it. Miles Killebrew is a stud. He might be the best special teamer in football. That means something. What he has done for the Pittsburgh Steelers Miles Killebrew is not he makes tackles type of guy. Miles Killebrew is he blocks punts so you score touchdowns type of guy. He produces more points sometimes than the offense does. That's what Miles Killebrew does for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is hands down the top of my list. I'm sure he's going to be a little pricey, to be honest with you, after the season that he's had. But I'm re-signing Miles Killebrew. Also, he started playing a role on defense at the end of the season last year, and I'm not saying he was good, but just to show that he's capable of doing that. I mean, this is a Matthew Slater. This is a guy that you are not getting rid of, that you are hanging on to until he's ready to go. He is hands down the guy that I like out of the list of free agents. If Omar Khan was to line them all outside of his office, the first person I'm calling in is Miles Killebrew saying, all right, let's get a deal done. And then we'll work on the rest of these guys. Easy. No question.
You say it might be pricey. Like, how pricey are you willing to go to re-sign a guy like a Miles Killebrew?
his last contract was $2 million, was 2 years, $4 million. I want to say I'm right around there again, $2 million a year, $3 million a year, maybe after the all pro selection, but maybe like $2 million with some incentives. You continue to make all pro, you earn another $1 million. You're making $3 million a year, somewhere in that ballpark. And that's, I mean, $2 million that's more than Armon Watts and Montravius Adams made last year. So that's a good chunk of change for a guy who plays special teams, but that's what you're getting. Like, you're getting a guy who could be a game changer. And, I'm going $3 million, which, again, more than Mason Rudolph made last year, more than a lot of these guys. I think it's more than Quan Alexander made last year. Like, you're looking at a special teamer who makes more than your starting inside linebacker. That's saying, I think it's more than DeMonte KZ made last year. If we're going to be 100% honest, I think it's more than a lot of these guys. I'm paying them maybe $3 million. I'm not even thinking about it. Another 2-year deal. That's my guy right there. I think Miles Killebrew is a stud, and he's your captain. And you keep game changers around, especially on special teams. That is a guy you keep around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, he definitely deserves a raise. But like you said, he's a special teamer. Like, that raise is going to be kind of within a certain range. So I'm all for that. I'm a big Miles Killebrew fan too. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's what Quan Alexander made $1.3 million. Miles Killebrew made $2 million. Like, that's who you're looking at. That you're looking at a guy who, I mean, Chandon Sullivan started at corner all season long. He made $1.2 million. Like, you pay your top tier special teamers. Miles Killebrew's my guy. Armon, I hope he comes back. He's a nice dude, but he's not my pick.